And we are back. Thank you so very much for choosing to stay with us. It feels absolutely great to be in your company. And in case you're just joining us, welcome to Kenya's Gold, where the focus of the day is on macadamia farming. Now, one thing that is important to note is the fact that the market is projected to grow steadily because there's a large number of consumers that prefer this nuts as a healthy snack as opposed to eating junk food. But there's still a lot that needs to be streamlined in that sector. And to help us understand more on macadamia farming, we do have the distinct honor of being joined by Jane Maigwa, who is the Managing Director, Exotic EPZ. Thank you so very much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me here today.
Great.
Karibu sana Jane. Lakini swali la kwanza kabisa, katika taifa la Kenya umesikiza tumetazama makala, lakini macadamia si kujulikana sana nchini. Tueleze kidogo kuhusiana na ukulima wa macadamia taifa la Kenya.
Asante sana kwa hilo swali. Macadamia nuts yamekuwa yanakuzwa Kenya na wakulima, lakini ni kweli hayajajulikana sana. Lakini nikiguzia kidogo ya kwamba macadamia ilikuja Kenya kitambo kidogo na ilianza kwa kupandwa kama shade tree over coffee. Haikuanza kama mmea ambayo ni wa kuleta mapato. So it was a shade tree, but it has continued to gain popularity as the world market continues to grow. So macadamia in Kenya has grown in terms of production. We have seen from 2009, when Kenya was producing 11,000 tons, metric tons, all the way to 2023. By last year, we were growing 45,000 tons. So there have been a very huge growth about on growing of macadamia nuts in Kenya for good reasons.
Okay.
Great. Now, we are also learning that despite the fact that it has not been very popularly practiced by different farmers in the country, it still has been a gold to certain farmers, because before COVID, they would get as much as 200 to 220 per kilo, all right? Then it dipped to almost 20 shillings, then 50, and now we are at about 90 shillings per kilo. Please help us understand what factors have been leading to these very drastic changes in prices between this span of time before COVID and now.
Absolutely. So macadamia nuts in the world, consumption has been growing, as you have rightly said, because people are very careful about what they eat nowadays. Yes. And up until COVID, before COVID, like you have mentioned, the prices of macadamia nuts were high. And actually, even right after COVID, they remained high. Because of the same reason we are saying that there was huge demand. You know, it's a market, so there's a demand and supply issue. And as COVID happened, you know, people stayed in the houses in the different parts of the world, and people began eating even more healthy. And so there was a shift in terms of consumption, and the prices maintained actually even after 2020. But before I go into 2021, I would like to mention that the market prices were also good in the international market before COVID, right. Whether in Europe, whether in USA, whether in China and other markets. But over 2023, which is last year, is when the prices dipped. So they didn't dip right after COVID or during COVID, they dipped last year. And the reasons why the prices went down drastically, there was a market failure, you know, obviously, mainly due to the inflation around the world. You know, there was the Russia-Ukraine war that affected, you know, so many trade sectors in the world, and a lot of other issues that led to the rising of prices, and costs went up. And so there was a consumer shift naturally in the world market at the store level. You know, there was a shift, there was less consumption, and also consumers were having to make the hard choices at the store. Do I buy milk? Do I buy macadamia? Do I buy cashew? Do I buy almonds? And macadamia had really shot up in prices prior in a way that we could say it wasn't sustainable. And it was only a matter of time that the prices were going to fall. The price markets were going to fall. It was referred as the queen of the nuts, very high prices. And so 2023, we saw a fall in pricing. Luckily, this year, the pricing is going up. So there was a glut in the market, you know, accumulation, as consumers were reduced consumption in 2023. because of the inflation I talked about. And so there was accumulation, you know, down all the way to the importers, to the processors, to the farmers. So there was an accumulation of stock. And with rising stocks, naturally the prices dip. So they went down. That's why the prices went down.
Right. Umezungumza kwa raha sana kumaanisha kwamba soko la kimataifa linapokea macadamia. Lakini kuna mtazamaji ambaye anataka sasa amekusikiza amefurahia sana soko. Huyu mtazamaji na mkulima vile vile angependa sana kujua ataanzia wapi kukuza macadamia.
Asante sana. Macadamia ni rahisi sana kukuza, lakini inahitaji mtu ambaye anaiangalia ni kama mmea ambao unaweza kumletea mapato, like a cash crop, not a hobby crop. Sababu itahitaji utaratibu fulani wa kukuza. So mkulima, tunawahimiza wakulima wakuze macadamia sana. La kwanza, lazima uwe na shamba lako ambalo umetayarisha vizuri, umetoa all the weeds, and you have tilled the land, whether it is half an acre, 5 acres, 100 acres. You can grow as much macadamia as you would like. There's enough market. So ukiwa na lile shamba lako, unatayarisha mashimo. First, of course, you test the soil to ensure that the soil is good for growing of macadamia, and you can go to the various soil testing facilities around where in the counties. Ukisha kuwa clear ya kwamba macadamia inaweza kukua kwenye unaishi, then you dig the holes. We encourage farmers to dig the holes like 2 months before planting. Especially during the dry season, so that you can allow if there are any pathogens and pests and insects to die. You know, when they're exposed to sunlight, when you expose, you know, that hole to sunlight, anything that is a pathogen or that is not ideal for growth of the seedling will die naturally. And the other thing we say is, as you dig out the soil, once ukifika pale 30 centimeters kwa ile shimo, ni lazima uanze kugawanya the soil. So there is the topsoil and there is what we call the subsoil. So ile topsoil iko na a lot of nutrients. Hiyo unaweka kando pande moja. Ile subsoil ile iko chini sana, haina nutrients nyingi, unaiweka kando pande hii. Ukisha anza kupanda, utatumia ile topsoil na utachanganya na compost manure. The world has gone organic. Nobody wants to eat chemicals. So uwe pale na compost yako, manure, uchanganye na topsoil, ndio ukaweza kupanda.
Right.
So you need the soil, you need the seedling. Hiyo ni number 2. Seedling hununui tu popote. Unatafuta zile nurseries ambazo ziko certified by KEFIS. Sababu utakuwa na assurity ya kwamba hiyo seedling itaweza kukua. You're not going to discover 5 years later that you could not get the yield that you want.
How does a farmer prove that? If I want to go buy the seedlings,
Yes.
Is there a particular certificate I should ask for?
Absolutely.
Just to make sure that where I'm buying my seedlings, it's certified? How does a farmer go about that?
Yes, please go ahead and ask the nursery operator to show you their valid KEFIS license for growing of macadamia and for growing other, you know, crops that they could be propagating in their nursery.
All right.
And we encourage you also to come to Exotic. We also have nurseries because we also want to assure our farmers that they're getting a quality seedling.
Right.
Sawa.
Right.
Asante sana. Unaendelea kutazama kipindi cha Kenya's Gold, kipindi ambacho kinahusika pakubwa sana na masuala ya ukulima. Tunahakikisha unapata yale yote ambayo unahitaji kama mtazamaji na vile vile mkulima. Lakini
Thank you so very much for choosing to stay with us. Continuing with our conversation with Jane Maigwa, who is the Managing Director, Exotic APZ. Now, still on the conversation on macadamia farming, Kenya is number 4 when it comes to production. And also we are exporting a lot of our macadamia. Please help us understand which countries are our major buyers, and then again, in what shape, form do we export our macadamia? Do we do it when it's raw or processed? And then also there's the issue of our farmers sometimes feel like there's no transparency or honest relationship between exporters and them because they believe our macadamia is getting absolutely good prices in the international market, but when it comes to them, 50 shillings a kilogram or 90. Please help us understand about what we can do better to streamline the relationship and if those facts are actually true.
Yeah, fantastic. Very good question. Yes, so Kenya is the 4th largest producer after South Africa, after China, and before China, actually, there's Australia.
Yep.
And so Kenya is an important producer of macadamia nuts in the world. So our markets, mainly, our major markets are United States of America and European countries.
All right.
Those are the main markets, world markets in terms of consumption. Like USA is the top consumer of macadamia nuts in the world, worldwide, and Europe follows. And of course, Asia comes in after that. We export our macadamia nuts, or how they consume it. They consume it when it is processed. You have to extract the kernel. We call it the kernel, the white, creamy white, what do you call it? Some people call it the meat of the nut.
Yes.
You extract it from the shell. The shell is brown. And in fact, when it's coming from the tree, the shell is brownish, greenish. So we process the nuts. So when the nuts are collected from the farmers, they are brought to the factories where the processing happens. And we do the drying. We do the cracking of the shell. It's a very hard nut to crack. So we do the cracking of the shell, and then we separate. There's a lot of separation that happens, separating the shell and the kernel. Then from separating, you have to sort. There's a round of sorting that you have to do, because the buyers will consume either in snack products, which will take in the whole nut, the large holes, basically, and other snack packs will have half nuts, or a mix of the two. Then we have buyers that will use them as ingredients. They'll use pieces, because the nut will also crack into pieces, as you're cracking. So the cracked pieces, and there are different sizes again of those pieces, they're used as ingredients in snack manufacturers, in confectionery manufacturers, as ice cream toppings, as they're used in cookies. They're used in a variety of uses. Yeah. So we sell our macadamia nuts as kernels. That's our largest market. But we also have a market that has been buying nut in shell, dry nut in shell. That's the Chinese market. And that's the only market that imports nut in shell. Now, we mentioned that China, of course, is now actually coming to the second largest. So they're soon becoming self-sufficient as far as their own consumption and utilization of macadamia nuts is concerned. So it is encouraged that we ensure we keep the diversified markets, the US market, the Europe market that does not consume the nut inside the shell. You have to process it.
So if they become self-sufficient and we are relying on them to buy our unprocessed nut, then it means we won't have nowhere to take them.
Oh, very soon. We'll actually have nowhere to take our nuts if we export the unprocessed nut. So it's not a sustainable market.
All right.
It was a good market, of course, last year, because as I mentioned earlier, we had a accumulation of nuts, with our farmers, and they needed to take those nuts somewhere. And it was a good move by the government to open a window to ensure that the nuts move, the farmers are able to sell. But it's not a good long-term plan, because then we'll be exporting our processing capacity. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So we'll be exporting raw materials, and our processing capacity goes to another country. Okay. And now we are actually undermining our goals as a country to create jobs. Okay. Macadamia processing creates over 40,000 jobs just at processors level. Men, women and youth, a lot of them are being employed there.
Sasa hapo kwa kuajiriwa vile vile kuna swala la value addition, na kuna kijana ambaye anakutazama sasa hivi na anashangaa ataingilia wapi yeye hasa katika shughuli nzima hii ama mchakato huu mkubwa wa kufanya tunaita processing hadi ifikie kiwango cha kusema value addition. Huyu kijana ataingilia wapi?
Vijana tunawahimiza sana waingie kwa agribusiness, agriculture and agribusiness. There's a lot they can do katika ukulima wa macadamia. Wanaweza kuongea na wazee wao wakawapa nafasi za mashamba. Hata vijana wengine wako na mashamba ambayo wanaweza kupanda macadamia. So kuna hali ya kupanda na kuuza, wanapata mapato. Number 2, wanaweza pia kuparticipate katika hiyo value chain. Kuna ile aggregation inafanyika, kuna ile transportation inafanyika, kuna ile processing ambayo inafanyika katika viwanda. Huko kuna kazi nyingi sana vijana wanaweza fanya. Right. Na pia wanaweza pia kujaribu kuingia katika value addition. Value addition yenyewe sio kernel pekee. Sasa tumeanza kuingililia mambo ya kutengeneza mafuta. Na pia hatujaanza mengine mengi. Tunaweza tengeneza unga kutoka kwa makadamia. Tunaweza tengeneza maziwa kutoka kwa makadamia. So kuna opportunities fulani kuroast pia zile makadamia.
Viwanda vilivyopo katika taifa la Kenya vinapatikana wapi sana kwa sababu labda mkulima hatachoka sana kuleta katika jiji kubwa Nairobi. Je, katika county tunapata viwanda vingine?
Sasa kuna utaratibu ambao processors wanaendelea kuendelea kuhimiza kununua directly kutoka mkulima. Ulikuwa umeniuliza swali ya kwamba how can the farmer benefit much more from the value that is coming from the international market. First of all, you have seen this processing. If I could answer the earlier question kidogo alafu nije pale. When we are processing, we only recover 15%. From the nuts that we collect from the farmers, we can only sell 15% of those nuts. Wow. Again, huwa tunapoteza shell, lazima utoe ile shell, kila nut iko na shell. Sasa hiyo ni kilograms zinatoka, ni grams fulani zinatoka, kuna kudry. So ile maji kuitoa ile maji kwa nut, there's a volume that goes away with that. Then there's a round of sorting. Wakulima wetu sana wako na shida katika hali ya ukulima wa macadamia. Wanalima lakini bado quality haijatokea vile inatakikana iwe. Unapata iko na pests, iko na molds kulingana na vile wana store. Kuna pia imachua wengine wana harvest mapema kidogo kabla ikomae. So you find there a lot of losses. And so hatuwezi compare ule ununuzi kwa shamba na uzaji katika shelf ya store. Pia katika processing kuna zile cost of production, kuna watu umeandika, employees, kuna electricity, stima imeenda juu sana like 60% up na other inputs ambazo ziko katika processing. So hivyo ndivyo hiyo value inapotea kwa mkulima kidogo, haiwezi compare pale the pricing out there and the pricing in here. But how are we going to make the prices better for the farmer? Is if we are going to buy as much as possible directly from the mkulima. So to set up collection centers, quite a number of the processors sasa wako na collection centers ambazo ziko karibu na mkulima. Sababu ya ile swala ya kwamba they are not able to get to the market in say where the processors are in Nairobi or in the main cities. So collection centers lazima tuzi-establish. Lazima pia tuende kwa mkulima, tuwe na programs na mkulima, sio kununua tu peke yake. Lazima tupatie huyo mkulima mafunzo fulani ya vile ataendelea mikakati ya kukuza huo mmea ili akapata more yields. And that's what we are doing also as a company, as Exotic. We have a large program where we train the farmers, each individual farmers at farm level, on the agronomy of macadamia. So that they can get better yields and deal with the issues of quality.
Great. Now, sticking there on value addition, let's speak about edible oils that we can get from macadamia. As a country, as of last year, we were importing edible oils worth about $1.2 billion US. Now, we'll just want to find out, with the production that we have right now, are we in a position whereby we can start producing enough edible oils that will cut off what we're importing? And I'm asking that in terms of, are we there in terms of production, technology as well that is involved when it comes to processing this oil, and also the expertise that is needed for this process to happen? Where are we in that spectrum?
Definitely, we have a lot of potential in that area of further value addition. And as you rightly said, when you go into value addition, that's where you're able to utilize innovation. So we do have innovation capacity in the country. We have the young people we were talking about, very bright, very intelligent. Technologies are available around the world. In fact, even some can be made locally by our own SMEs, as long as we are promoting local processing, and as long as policies in Kenya and the regulatory frameworks are supportive and promoting local processing. So to answer straight, yes, we can be able to produce edible oil from macadamia. It's already happening. If you look around the shelves, you will find macadamia oil brands have started increasing. And we have a longer way to go. We have a potential we can utilize that we haven't utilized for value addition into oil, into flours, into milk. Yeah.
So there's still a lot more work that can be done.
There's a lot more work, but we need the right legislation, the right policies to promote value addition, not export of unprocessed products.
Asante sana Jane Maigwa, na mimi nimetamka vizuri jina lako. mkurugenzi mwelekezi Exotic EPZ. Asante sana kwa ufafanuzi wako mkubwa. Mtazamaji, umesikiliza kutoka kwake, amefafanua sana. Iwapo huko unafahamu sana kuhusiana na Macadamia, basi radhi sasa unafahamu zaidi. Kwa taka kwangu Emmanuel Terer, nisemeje? Salia na Mwenyezi Mungu, kumbuka tutatimiza ndoto.
Great, thank you so very much.
You mean we are done? We were just starting. How could we be done? We had so much to say.
That's how interesting the conversation is. We'll definitely have you back. But before you leave, for a farmer who's doing Macadamia, can they do it entirely rain-fed? Or you have to
You would need to do watering when the seed, especially seedling kama haijashika. I saw you with the nursery operators. You have to water like any other seedling.
So not entirely rain-fed.
But if you plant during the rainy season, there are chances of.
All right.
Are we still on?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Now, that's all the time that we did have for you today. We definitely kick-started the week, which today is Tuesday. It's going to be a very confusing week. You'll feel like today is Monday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Not a bad way to, kick-start this week that is starting in the middle. And of course, my parting shot today will be to the young people. A reminder that agriculture is now no longer about traditional farming. It has morphed into technology, agribusiness, research, and advocacy. Please do find your niche in that space. We'll see you again tomorrow as we continue with our mission of learning from our farmers, appreciating our farmers, inducting and onboarding new farmers like you and I. Thank you so very much for watching. My name is Violetta Ngina. Goodbye.